I wanted to do a video on my experience, I'll say even as an American and not as a EU member or someone from UK, but as an American, my experience with doing the ITV, which is your inspection of your vehicle. I believe in UK it's called the MOT. In the United States it would just be your annual inspection on your vehicle. I don't think there's a specific name to it. Anyway, we actually just completed ours and we passed, but I wanted to give you an idea of what the facility looks like. And I'm going to tell you, when you first get here, you're going to want to go in the office and then you'll check in and pay, and then they'll give you a number of line to get in, and so those cars are all lined up in line to get their inspection done. But I would recommend coming only maybe 10 minutes before your appointment, because if you come any sooner, they're going to tell you to wait. We came like 30 minutes sooner, and she's like, just wait till you're closer to your appointment. So we came about 10 minutes till our appointment, went inside, gave her all the necessary paperwork and paid, and then we moved on. So I wanted to give you a basic idea of what the actual place looks like. It's probably similar in your home country, but I'm going to head home now, and then I'm going to let you guys know what my experience was, what each station went through, and then what I had to get through to pass. So when you go in the office to present the paperwork, you're going to need your permiso de circulación. That it would be, to me, the title in the United States. That would just be the title of the vehicle. You also need the tarjeta de la inspección técnica, which is, it's basically a book that has all the prior stamps of your past inspections, whether they were failures or successes. It's basically a book of past inspection results. You'll also need your NIA, which I always explain to people is the equivalent of like your social security card in the United States. I don't know if that's a good comparison, but that's what I go with because you need it for tax purposes. You also need the recibo vigente del seguro, which is proof of insurance. So what I did was I brought the contract that I was given when I got my car insurance, and I also coincidentally had the receipt that I was given from the Santander Bank, which is where I actually paid the fee. So I brought those two things together, and that was enough. So then you pay the fee. Fee is based off of fuel type, engine type, and weight, I believe. Ours came out to 40-50 euro. I believe at this point that's maybe roughly 45 USD. At that point, we were given a number to get in line in which bay. So basically the place is set up, I don't know if they're all set up like this, but it's like a horseshoe kind of setup where you go in on one side, loop around, and come out the other side, and in the middle is the office where you initially speak to the representative and pay and present your paperwork. So on the right side, we were given a bay number. We went to that bay, and we waited until we were at the front, and then once we were at the front, the technician asked us to come forward at a certain point. So once the technician was ready, he had us basically pull into the first half of the bay. They're rather long bays, so he had to stop at the first half, and here he had us test all of our lights. So basically we did left, right turn signals for front and rear, and then we did the regular lights. He checked your running lights, and then he also had a machine he brought over, and I believe it checked the brightness of the lights, the lumens, I guess. And he had us check the brights and the hazards. And so going into it, I knew we had a rear tail light out, so it's kind of funny because I wasn't able to fix the rear tail light. We had one working and one out, so I was iffy whether or not they'd pass us, and they ended up not having an issue with that. We ended up not having working hazard lights, which I didn't find out until we were there, and he asked me because prior to this they had worked. So I was very surprised, having actually gone through a few things before we went to make sure everything was working, and having not checked that one thing, which was my hazards, and they didn't work. So next he had us pull onto some rollers, and once we were on the rollers, he turned the machine on. Essentially the machine controls the roller speed, and then what they do is they have you apply your foot brake, and it tests the force that your brake applies against this roller. And then once we finished with our foot brake, we basically did the exact same thing with the application of the hand brake. And then once we finished with the lights and the hand brake, We also, at one point at the very beginning, did the windshield wipers, and he had us test the fluid dispenser as well. So surprisingly enough, you have to have functioning fluid dispenser on your windshield wipers. So once we did all that, he had us move to the second portion of the first bay. At this point, the hood was opened. I believe he checked the overall appearance of the motor in the motor bay, and he checked like fluid levels and things of that nature. He was taking photos in there. I believe, though, he was actually taking a photo of the VIN. He had us actually open the side doors too, which was a bit confusing. I don't know if he was testing the response of the lights in the inner vehicle, or the functionality of the door in general, observing the inside of the vehicle. Not quite sure about that. And then at this point, he just had us move to the next bay. So we exited the first bay and looped around in a U shape to the next bay and stopped there and waited for the technician to ask us in. So once I arrived at the next point, the tech had me exit the vehicle. I believe this possibly could have been to make his job easier, or maybe he has everyone exit their vehicle. But basically what he had me do, what he did, excuse me, was he held the RPMs at a certain level and just put the sniffer on the tailpipe, I'll call it, the emissions sensor. He put that on the tailpipe and had me step out, and then he revved it for a little bit at a certain RPM. Maybe he doesn't do this to everyone, but rather than telling me, trying to communicate with me, he just had me get out. And then he just let it idle and did the same thing, essentially, letting the sensors read the emissions. And then once that was complete, he had me pull to the second half of that bay. And at that point, the first thing they had me do was pull onto 4 large plates. So one wheel was on a plate. And I believe what that essentially did was test the suspension and alignment mechanically. I was watching the car in front of me as I was waiting, and the plates were kind of just shifting the wheels in different directions, spreading the wheels apart and shifting them forward and backward. It was very interesting, actually. So I don't know if it's very important, but he also had me put the car in neutral at that point with no brake. So I was just sitting on the plates, no brake applied, in neutral. And he actually also had me shift the wheels rapidly from left to right, basically like this. Basic Spanish can get you by. He was yelling. So he's in the pit and he has like a microphone, and the speaker's up in the bay where you are. So it's loud and kind of hard to hear, and if you're not quite understanding, there could be complications, but it wasn't necessarily an issue, so that was all good. So yeah, he had us test the suspension, then shift the wheels left and right. Then I also believe while he was under there, he gave a visual inspection of the undercarriage in general, visual inspection of the alignment. I only know this from reading. He also had me apply the foot brake and the hand brake while he was down there. So once you've completed all the inspections, the technician will have you pull out of the bay. At this point, if you've passed, he will apply the new sticker to your book and to your windshield. Unfortunately, we did not pass because our hazard lights were not functioning, so that was a bit of a drag, but it was nice though, because he took us outside of the bay, explained to us what the failure was. He explained to us that we had 2 weeks to return, and within those 2 weeks, if you get your repair done, you do not have to pay the fee again, and that once we got the repair done, we were to follow this large yellow line that's on the pavement of the facility, and that takes you basically directly to a smaller inspection station in the backside of the larger one, and this way you're able to bypass everyone else who's doing their inspection for the first time. So what we did was we just basically Googled how to fix the hazard light on our BMW, and the guy had made a short video on YouTube. Basically the bottom of the assembly of the button falls out, and you just have to put it back together and then glue it or tape it. We were able to actually buy a couple dollars worth of tools and some tape at a bazaar and get it fixed within like 20 minutes. So we went immediately back, followed the yellow line to the back, and then once that technician brings you into that smaller bay to do that second inspection, they actually do a small inspection of everything again, basically like lights and brakes and stuff or something real quick. It was not nearly as intense as the first one, just something real basic, just in case something else broke while you were out, I assume. So he checked that our hazards were repaired, we did the other basic inspection, and then he scraped our old sticker, put a new one on the windshield of the vehicle, and then also applied a new sticker to our book saying that we had passed. So for this particular year in our book, there's a fail and a pass sticker, so they do log when you fail as well. So going into this, I was pretty anxious. I didn't think that I was going to have the best experience. Not that you have ever a good experience going to have your inspection done in your car, but it was not nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be. Even with the failure, we were able to get the repair done really quick. I think I disarmed most of the people at the facility by just in my best Spanish asking them to be patient with me and that I was learning Spanish and that this was my first inspection. So everyone is real polite, you know, that kind of made a few of them smile. So they opened up and were real patient with me, and yeah, it went really well. In the United States, at least in Arizona, we do not have such a thorough inspection. They basically plug into your diagnostic computer, and if all your systems are ready, they pass you. They don't even test your emissions on your exhaust pipe anymore, at least not on our vehicle. It's a 2012 Subaru, so there they don't do those particular emissions or any of the body inspections or anything. They do more thorough inspections in other parts of the United States. We also stay in Maine a lot, and there's a very thorough inspection there, but there's a lot of salt, so there's body rust and stuff. The experience we had was a little different being from Arizona in the United States versus the thorough inspection that they have here in Europe, or maybe more specifically here in Spain. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it was insightful, and if you have an ITV coming up, I hope everything goes well for you, and I hope this video helped to prepare you for your experience, and thanks for watching.